Peace, fam. It's your brother Cool. Back with another video. For this particular one is called "Is Cheat the Cause?" Is cheat cheat Escheat. Cheat is the cause. Dis-entitlement is the effect. All right. So I got. Oops. Let's get this right. It don't work with me here. It don't work with me. You gotta work with me. You gotta work with me. Alright. You're just gonna have to be a little bit more gentle. But I have a couple of lessons here that I'm gonna break down. This should clarify a lot of things, especially for certain now I'm not one to take sides and stuff like that. I'm more so private into myself and I focus on what I'm doing. But in regards to this one, this is a special I guess you could call it a nail in the coffin, for various Moors who speak against operating under your own aboriginal government, but rather will say that the best route is to actually operate within the United States. No bueno. No bueno. The United States has been insolvent and bankrupt and with no sovereign authority since 1933. All right? Both legally and lawfully. So this is for y'all, and this is to bring some understanding, understanding, and overstanding for the Moors who are coming into this. And mind you, when I say Moors, I'm talking about all melanated peoples across this globe that we call Earth, right? Now, when I nationalized through RV Bay Publications. A lot of the information that I studied and the reference points that I attained early in my awakening, process was through RV Bay Publications. Praise Allah, because they put the information out and I came across it, and it wasn't, and it wasn't nothing that good, and it wasn't nothing that they were saying. It was pretty much what the law is saying, what congressional records are saying. So when you order books and stuff like that, and you get your proclamation and things from RV Bay, you get various little study packets and lessons and stuff. So I got tons of these, dude. I got tons of these, man. So I run through these and I cross-reference them with the studies that I've already done, on my own. And they all line up. So this is just to say, for anyone who's not aware of RV Bay Publications or who is questioning RV Bay Publications. For one, RV Bay Publications ain't the daddy or mommy of nobody, nor is any other organization for that matter. It is time that we are all our own high priests, okay? So, with that being said, RV Bay is just another vehicle, created by the people for the people, as another way of issuing proclamations, identity cards, etc., etc. So I can't speak on the business aspect, but what I can speak on is the informational aspect, and I'm going to qualify that and make some things make sense. All right. I go in, I took down notes. I jotted down a few things that I'm going to read through, a few definitions and stuff like that we're going to get into. We're going to get into this. We're going to get into this. So, first one, this joint right here. the spirit of law. All right. So I'm going to go in right here to this part here. All right. What is the political act of nationalization? Nationalization is wherein the legitimate nationals of the land, political state, country, nation, through their legitimate national representative government, reclaims sovereign authority over the natural person, geographical land territories, jurisdiction, and resources, both natural and political, of their nation. Nationalization is usually instituted due to the negative effects of foreign corporations or persons who, by way of subversive political or economic activities, have threatened or compromised the sovereign powers, substantive rights, or economic resources of the true nationals of the country / nation / state. Who are the nationals, comma, the sovereigns, right? Number one, so just to be clear, 4 types of citizenship. Number one, national, the highest rank of citizenship, the natural people of the land, the aboriginal and indigenous peoples. All right, so that's who nationals are. So when you go visit any country on this planet, okay, the nationals are the aboriginal peoples there, the natural peoples of the land. Okay, those are the nationals in any country you go to. All right, that's why you're dealing with international law. Inter meaning between nations, national, international, between nations. All right, so if you don't claim, right, that you're aboriginal and indigenous, then you cannot be a national. Not because it is not your birthright, but it is because you just haven't risen to claim it. All right. Number 2, citizen. The naturalized citizen, not nationalized. When they say the naturalized citizen, what they mean is the adopted citizen. Okay? Meaning the naturalized citizen isn't aboriginal or indigenous to that government. They aren't original. You know what I'm saying? They're adopted in after the fact. You know what I'm saying? So that's what a citizen is, a naturalized citizen. Okay? Because a national is a citizen, but in the perspective of an aboriginal and indigenous, you know what I'm saying, natural being who is a citizen of their tribe or their aboriginal society, all right, or Juro society. So we are not citizens, we are nationals, all right, which is the highest rank of a citizen, which is a member, right, like a family member. The members of your family are citizens of that family, all right? Let's not make it more, it's not that difficult. Number 3, subject. This is where corporations rest, including corporate persons, Negro, colored, black, etc. All right, subject, meaning those are like the serfs, the slaves, you know what I'm saying? The vassals, all right? That's pretty much servant. Number 4, alien, the foreigner who remains as such and is clothed with certain rights of citizenship as is the citizen and the subject, and they can be unclothed, rights versus privileges. All right? So you either fall under one of those 4 categories, you know what I'm saying, of citizenship. Either you fall under that of a national, either that of a citizen, that of a subject, or that of an alien. Okay? Now, The only people who have the sovereign power and authority to nationalize their country / state, resources and land, etc., is the national. All right? The only people who have the power to um, nationalize, meaning protect and secure. Okay? So, now, there's a very big thing we got to comprehend here. The reason why I read this is because I want everyone to know the different classes. 4 different classes, just like there's 4 different seasons, 4 different directions. North, west, you know what I'm saying? North, south, east, and west. All right? You have up, down, left, and right. Okay? So, there are, understand this, there are 4 categories of citizenship. And this applies in every country. Okay? These are the different classes people fall under within these governments. So you got to be aware of that. What class or what category do you fall under? Are you a national? Are you the Aboriginal and Indigenes? Are you a citizen, meaning you're naturalized, meaning you're not natural from that government, but you've been adopted in and clothed with the rights of a natural born citizen? All right? Number 3, either you're a subject, meaning you're a slave, or a peasant, or a servant, or a serf, which has no rights, and no rights to ownership, no rights to anything except to do execute the orders that are given to you. You have no rights to any benefits or anything like that, but you do have a right to do all the work. Number 3, you have the right to do all the work and reap none of the benefits. And then you have number 4, alien, who is a foreigner, you know what I'm saying, who's clothed with certain rights, not all of the rights, but certain rights, right? Just certain rights. So, you know what I'm saying, you got to pick now. Which one, what type of citizen, you know, what category do you want to fall under? You know what I'm saying? Because if you ask any national of any country that they're, you know, that they're originating from, they'll tell you, all right, that being a national is regular. It's not nothing new. It's how it should be. Everyone's supposed to be a national. You understand what I'm saying? Everyone's supposed to be a national because everyone's supposed to have a nationality. Everyone has a mother. All right? So, let's get into this here. AA222141. This is the registration number in the Library of Congress for the Zodiac Constitution. All right? The Zodiac Constitution of the Moorish Nation. Written by C.M. Bay, Charles Mosley Bay. All right? 33rd degree, 360 degree Master Mason, Moorish astrologer, you know what I'm saying, etc., etc. Moorish lawgiver, constitutional writer. So, plus he you know, he fell in line underneath the teachings and the doctrine of Noble Drew Ali. You know what I'm saying? Which is in line with the ancestors, if you can just start tracing back. So, AA222141. That's, like I said, that's the number of our government. If you talk about sovereignty, that's the filing number of our sovereignty, because sovereignty is measured by the constitution of a people. So if you don't have a constitution as a unit, you don't talk about sovereignty, because sovereignty lies in your constitution. That's your physical manifestation of sovereignty. And all judges are bound to uphold all the laws of any constitution of any state. Whether you're talking in the regards of the Constitution or without. And when it comes to the situation of us as Aboriginals, our circumstances is different. We're without the Constitution of the United States. because we're natives. We have our own constitution and our own laws to abide by, our own cultures and our own customs. All right. So, and it's also the tax exempt number. You know what I'm saying? And all those who have national identification cards, or I should say, all those who have Moorish state identification cards, then you're on point. And when you look in your card, you'll see that registration number, AA222141, which ties you to your constitution, and is also your tax exempt number. As well as it is codified as USC Title 22, Chapter 2, Section 141. So, that being said, I'm going to read. I want to read this, and I want to bring something into people's awareness. Maybe you're not aware of this. All right? So check this out. A1 citizen with a permanent character comes from the USC codes, United States Codes, Title 22, Chapter 2, Section 141 to 143. It references the highest rank of citizen. In 1956, they relinquished the jurisdiction of the United States in Morocco by President Eisenhower. All pending cases were disposed of by 1960. So, what this is saying here, right, is that in 1956, the United States, under the leadership of President Eisenhower, relinquished jurisdiction. Now remember, jurisdiction is the right to speak on a matter. So in 1956, under President Eisenhower, the United States relinquished. Relinquish means like, to let go. If you're holding something tight, you got to relinquish. Or if something is in your possession, you want to relinquish, like let it go. You know what I'm saying? Relinquish means to let things go, take it off, get rid of it, give it away, relinquish. Okay? So, in 1956, the United States relinquished the rights to speak on the matters of Morocco. But wait though. So what that means is, prior to 1956, Morocco was in the jurisdiction of the United States. And when I say that, I mean that Morocco was a state within the United States of America. Because it says here in 1956, it was relinquished. All right? So if it was relinquished, that means it must have been held on to prior. Right? So essentially what that's stating is that 1956 is when the United States relinquished jurisdiction in Morocco. Jurisdiction of the United States in Morocco was relinquished in 1956. All right, so therefore, Morocco is a state in the United States of America prior to 1956. So, with that being said, all right, now that we understand that Morocco is an American state, though you don't see it on paper, you can see it clearly in the statutes. They tell you right there without even having to say anything. Because it's like, all right, if you're relinquishing a jurisdiction in 1956, that means you must have, when did you gain the jurisdiction? How long did you hold on to the jurisdiction prior to releasing it in 1956? All right? And we're talking about Morocco. The United States and Morocco. We're talking about the United States and Morocco here. All right? So, hold on to that. And we're going to move forward. Now, This is number 2 right here. I numbered these, in the order I'm going to display them. All right. I don't know if you can see the light, but in regards to nationality, all right. When we study nationality and birthrights, one begins to understand that civilization's laws come from nations. And if you are not part of a nation, you don't come under national or international law. I'm going to repeat that one more time. And if you are not part of a nation, you don't come under national or international law. If you're not under or part of a nation, right? Now remember, if you look up the SF-181 form or the SS5 form, that's SS-5 form from the Social Security Office, you will get a chance to see all the races, the classifications, American Indian, Asian, Black, African American, white, etc., and they'll tell you the definitions of what those various classifications mean and what they represent. So if you look up Black African American, it states that Black and African American is persons having origins in any of the Black racial social groups of Africa, which probably doesn't sound anything wrong with that if you're hearing this for the first time. But when you read that information, the problem is that all the other nations, meaning Asians, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander, like I said, American Indian, you got white, they all have origins in people, origins in any of the original peoples of that land. Now remember, I'm going to read this one more time. And if you are not part of a nation, you don't come under national or international law. Black people, African Americans, do not have origins in people. If you don't have any origins in people, that means you don't have origins in a nation, because nations are people. A state is people. A country is people. Okay? So if you do not originate from people, then you cannot participate in national or international law. And when I say participate, meaning your ass cannot come under the protections because you're claiming to be outside of the family of nations, because you're claiming to not originate in peoples. When you allow foreigners and our own brothers and sisters to call us Black or African American alike, we are casting the evil spell on each other. We are not Black and African American. We do have origins in people. We have origins in the original people. All across Earth, in any country. When you go and do the history in the original peoples, you will find melanin. I promise you. I've seen it for myself through my own research. So this is the problem. This is why Black and African American people can get pulled over at a traffic stop, pulled out their car, tased, shot up, beat down, and arrested, because for one, you have no knowledge of self. So therefore, you know what I'm saying, you're not under your proper status. You're a subject because you choose to be Black and African American. You don't have any origins in peoples. So therefore, there's nothing about you that's worth respecting. There's nothing about you that's held to be sacred or valuable or something worth looking at and being like, yo, that's a creation of God. Let that be. There's no type of laws or any type of consideration towards you when you identify as that. Because when you identify as Black and African American and you say you don't have no origins in people, and you definitely do have origins in people, you're literally spitting on the name of your ancestors. Not to mention that your ancestors did not have European names. Over here, this is America. Over here, we had Americanos names, or Aboriginal indigenous names, not Smith, Jones, and Johnson. This is the land of the L's and the Bays. Okay? So this is what happens. You fall out of national and international law. All right. And I'll link this up with the Bible. Exodus 20:12. Exodus 20:12. Exodus 20:12. Honor thy mother and thy father, that thy days on the earth land may be long and plentiful, that thy Lord God hath giveth thee. All right. Let's continue. Therefore you are not recognized by the nations of the earth. Right? Because you're not claiming to originate from people. So therefore, other people ain't going to recognize a thing that has no origins in people. All right? So therefore, you are not recognized by the nations of the earth. Because law deals with the interchange between natural people, not persons, natural people, right? Across the planet, always has been that way. And they, meaning the nations, have governmental principles that are universal in their character. Universal in their character meaning they come from a place of honoring their ancestors and moving forward and continuing on their legacy in those family names. Nationality. They're not unique to us necessarily. They are universal in their character. So when you deal with other nations, there are certain fundamental principles that are universal that they expect from you when they communicate with you. And if you don't display a knowledge of them, then you are in violation of divine law, which is where government law is derived. Prime example. Hey, I'm meeting you for the first time. Nice to meet you. So, where are you? So what's your nationality? I'm black. Now I'm going to repeat that whole thing again. And if you don't display a knowledge of them, then you are in violation of divine law, because you're not black. And ignorance of the law is no excuse. So just because you don't know that you're not black or African American, don't mean that you are not that you are not still held to the consequences of the violation of divine law. You are still held to that. All right? So, even though you don't know you Moors, you still violating divine law. All right? Which is where government law is derived, right? Natural law, you would naturally think, comes from divine law. Okay? And divine law is the law of nations. Right? You want to talk about divine law, the law of God, the law of nature, right? The law of a collective people. Divine law. You know what divine law would be? A constitution. That's why when you're talking about sovereignty, you're talking about divine. Because sovereign and savior are the same words. Sovereign, savior, save, savior. You see what I'm saying? It's the same vibration. So a sovereign is the savior, and a savior is the sovereign. But there's no one coming to save you. You have to become your own savior, aka your own sovereign. All right? So I'm going to read from the top again. And if you don't display a knowledge of them, then you are in violation of divine law, which is where government law is derived, and are outside of the law or considered what's called an outlaw, of which natural citizens and government can do whatever they want to you and get away with it. So if you don't claim to have any origins in people, what you are considered is as an outlaw. And now as an outlaw, I'm going to repeat that. As an outlaw, the natural citizens and government can do whatever they want to you and get away with it. you are looking to become, if you are looking to belong to or become a part of a Moorish body politic, it is important for you to know that it begins with you. You must become conscious that you are the body politic that you have been looking for. Once you are secure in your knowledge of nationality and national principles, then and only then can you be an active and productive part of a body politic. So this goes back to, now remember, you talking about secured party creditor. In order to be secured, right, you got to be knowledgeable as to who you are and what your position is. Not only what your position is, but what your position is in this diaspora, in this dimension, in this position, right? In this cycle of life that you're currently in. You understand what I'm saying? So, in order to be secure about that, you got to be knowledgeable about self. Who are you? Where do you come from? Where do you originate from? You know what I'm saying? Who are your ancestors? So once you are secure in your knowledge meaning you are rooted, well rooted, you're grounded, you know what I'm saying? You have a good comprehension of you know what I'm saying, who you are, where you've been, what you've done, and where you're going. You can see it all. All right? That means you're well grounded in your nationhood, your culture, your nationality, your ancestry. Once you are secure in your knowledge of nationality and national principles, then and only then can you be an active and productive part of a body politic. You must be active and not passive in these matters as they pertain to you, right? They pertain to you. So it's not up to someone else to do the legwork for you. You know what I'm saying? You got to do the legwork and get in on the information because this is for your salvation, not mine's, right? I'm the one sharing this information with you. So I already know, you know what I'm saying, where my level of seriousness is with this information, because this is the type of information that's rightfully yours, that's rightfully mine. This is the type of information that changes our lives. Dramatically changes our lives. Imagine it though, and it's easy to comprehend for me anyway why it's such a dramatic change. Think about it. You're going from identifying as a thing who has no origins in people to now identifying as I am and have always been this. And what this is something that has an origin in a people that were created by something greater than them. All right? And that's why the change is so dramatic. That's why it's like opposite poles. You know what I'm saying? No laws, no protections, laws and protections. You know how many times throughout the years I've been stopped or pulled over by policy enforcers? Never got taken into jail, never got tased, never got pulled out the car. You know what I'm saying? Been asked to step out the car. That was a good lesson though. You know what I'm saying? Operating a vehicle that wasn't registered underneath my trust. So, you know, so therefore the vehicle was underneath the jurisdiction of the United States, but I was not, so they couldn't take me. You know what I'm saying? But like I said, it wasn't taken. Like 6, 7 cops, all with gloves on. You know what I'm saying? Been stopped before. They think, you know, them thinking I stole the car, you know, whatever. You know what I'm saying? Identifying as who? Myself, Kumare Suel. Never identifying as corporation. Always identifying myself as a natural person, as a Moorish American. And I've never experienced any of these things. You know what I'm saying? And I've never had to sit there and argue with cops and stuff like that. Like, don't sit there and argue with them. It's pointless. You know what I did though? I made sure to have all my trust information in references to me gifting the car to the trust so that the VIN matches, and making sure I have my certified copies on me in my automobile. You know what I'm saying? And when I'm traveling, I always have my identification card. I don't have a traveler's ID. I'm not saying it's not necessary, but I've never had one. I just had my national ID, and that's all I rock with. You know what I'm saying? When I'm traveling. Um, at first, I had state plates. You know what I'm saying? They were expired. I just left them on the car. So, still got stopped regardless. And regardless of the fact, there was many times where they wanted to tow the vehicle, but they can't because I can prove ownership. You know what I'm saying? Because I have the trust documents in the car. So it's never a question of, is that my vehicle or is that my automobile? You see what I'm saying? So it's all in the mindset, man. It's all in the mindset. But let's continue. There are protocols to follow in protecting your rights of birth. The protections of your birthrights are secured in the Constitution for the United States Republic of North America. Essentially, this means you must enforce the Constitution. Now keep in mind, when you look at that Constitution, Article 6 states that all debts and contracts entered into before the adoption. So any constitution that you have now, and mind you, there's 4 constitutions in the government known as the United States of America. There's 4 constitutions. All right. The Articles of Association, the Articles of Confederation, the Declaration of Independence, and the Constitution for the United States Republic of North America, 1791. So, I'm sorry, Articles of Confederation, 1781, Declaration of Independence, 1776, and Articles of Association, 1774. All right, so all of these, so the Constitution we have now incorporates all prior debts and engagements entered into. So it's bringing all things from the past, from that, all things that existed prior to it, is bringing it in, and it's stating that it is just as legit against the United States, not for the United States, against, opposing the United States. Pause. Stop. What you're trying to do against the United States. All right. So, all right. Essentially, this means you must enforce the Constitution. It also means when someone else is perpetrating a violation of it against you, you must defend it and hold them to that same principle. No one has authority over it in this land, as it is the supreme law of the land. It is written in the spirit of divine law, and from it comes natural/national law. Anything to the contrary of it is notwithstanding, meaning it has no standing. Therefore, anyone who is perpetrating against it against you is not the authority over you, as they are in violation themselves. You must take responsibility and recognize your obligations. Obligations means legal duty. So you must take responsibility and recognize your obligations. Recognize your legal duties, so you may act in your own best interest. I'm going to repeat that one more time. You must take responsibility and recognize your obligations, so you may act in your own best interest. Then you share this pertinent information with others to assist in freeing them, as their freedom is tied to yours. There is no escaping these protocols of liberty. Liberty means freedom. There are no shortcuts and no skirting around them. All right, so what am I doing right now? Right? This is what we all need to be doing. We all need to be perpetrating nationality and birthrights. Everyone is endowed from their creator with certain unalienable rights, which cannot be transferred, bought, or sold, or turned into a crime as they have been. Are you interested in protecting your birthright and the birthright of your children? Right? Because it's not just a you thing. This is about you, your partner, your mate, your lady, your wife, you know what I'm saying, your girlfriend, and your future children. This is what it's all about. Because if you secure your rights, then you securing their rights. All right? Are you interested in living in full life and your children living their lives with liberty and in the pursuit of happiness? Or are you conditioned to complain and be a victim? Remnants of mental enslavement. Stand up, become active, and remain active. No one can implement, represent, or defend your birthrights for you. You must do it yourself. In Islam. And there are some definitions here. We're going to go through them. Well, best believe we're going to go through them. But I want to bring in number 3 here. Okay. Yeah, we're going to add this here into this. And then we're going to get into the straw. We're going to get into the straw. All right. Cool. So let's do this here. Got this one here. It's called Let's Talk About the Straw. So, this one here is called Let's Talk About the Straw. Coming out for a cig? Coming out for a cig?
Yeah.
Many people don't really know what a straw is and how it is created. There are many straws, and there are many tentacles to the typical straw that has been connected to you via the birth certificate and other fraudulent negotiable instruments. The government is the servant to the people. You are the people, unless you choose to not identify as the people. However, they have, through trickery and lack of knowledge, converted the people into public officers, servants identified as a straw. So, there's a definition of straw here somewhere. There's a definition of straw here somewhere. Where is it? Where is it? Bound to find it now. Oh, here we go. It's right here in the back. So, this is Ballantyne's Law Dictionary, 3rd edition. Strawman means a dummy, an irresponsible bondsman or surety, one made to appear as the owner of record who in fact holds title for another. One made to appear as the owner. Straw man. So the straw is not the owner, it's made to appear as the owner. Only one who can be the owner or grantor is people. So there's some Supreme Court case laws I talk about Congress and what their limitations are. If you don't know what Congress is, Congress would be the legislature in every state. Legislature is the people who write the laws. So, this particular case was in 1866. This is dealing with licensing and taxing cases. So Congress cannot authorize a trade or business within a state in order to tax it. License tax cases, 72 U.S. 462, 18 LED 497, 5 Wall 462, comma 2, AFTR, AFTR, AFTR 2224. You gotta make sure the elders get the work too, man. The subconscious is always gonna be listening. You know what I'm saying? Spread that word and go back home. Islam. So, once again, what this is saying is that the Congress cannot authorize a trade or business within a state in order to tax it. So Congress cannot say, hey, we're going to create business licenses or commercial licenses for vehicles and for people to create a business for themselves to secure and protect their estate, and then put taxes on it, and then have them pay taxes on that. Supreme Court case law. Congress cannot authorize. All the powers, this is another case now, all the powers of the government must be carried into operation by individual agency, either through the medium of public officers or contracts made with individuals. Osborne versus Bank of U.S., 22 U.S. 738. This case took place in 1824. Now, the following are straw contracts made by government with outside entities. The use of them have made you a public officer or the entity created. The government cannot make contracts with the public. This is why they connect themselves with these outside entities and trick the people into thinking, for example, that the following are actually government agencies when they are not. Number 1, Social Security. Number 2, Division of Motor Vehicles. Number 3, Employment Applications. Number 4, Alleged Government Housing. And number 5, any form/contract where they ask for Social Security number, tax identification number, and employer identification number. All right? So any form or contract where they ask for Social Security number, tax identification number, or employer identification number. Yes, these are all straw contracts. This is why I've been saying previously that, you know what I'm saying, the people are in possession of persons, and a person is a trust, a business, a corporation, an estate, a partnership, an association. So when you're talking about person, you're talking about trust. So yes, I, Ku Amare Su El, natural person, impropria persona su juris solo proprio, aboriginal and indigenous to Al Maghrib Al Aqsa, you know what I'm saying, the Morocco, the extreme west, called modernly today North, South, Central America. You understand what I'm saying? I am the grantor and beneficiary of the estate known as Ku Amare Su El, right? The estate is, I made my own estate. My estate is called Ku Amare Su El. I, grantor beneficiary, the actual entity is my trustee. All right? Because a straw is made to appear to be the owner, but they're not the owner, right? I am the owner of my straw, or my person, or my trust, or my estate. So you have to comprehend these straw contracts and understand that these are straws. They're not you. You are in possession of these straws. And the only reason that we even have to deal with straws modernly today is due to the fact that we're no longer operating in gold and silver. Well, not for the time being anyway. Has been a global reset. You know what I'm saying? So we're no longer operating right now in gold and silver, but If we were, there'd be no reasons for persons. You understand? So, all government contracts are straw. Note, an employee is a public officer. Employee identification is the social security number, right? An employee is a public officer, right? Employee identification is the social security number. Therefore, you are considered an employee if you have and utilize a social security number. You are treated as a corporation. So I'm going to say that one more time. If you have and utilize a social security number, you are treated as a corporation. And this is very valid. I can qualify this because, like I said, 2 years prior when I was working, you know what I'm saying, in the public, I was operating underneath my trust. I wasn't utilizing a social. I didn't use a social to get the job. I used my trust. And in using my trust, it was very clear that a distinction was made between me, the natural person, and my trust. So I wasn't treated as a corporation. I was treated as a human, as I was treated as a man, as a being, as a natural being, able to work and not be taxed. You know what I'm saying? I secured the entire bag and brought it home. So, yes, when you operate utilizing that employee identification, which is the Social Security, then yes, you don't own it. All right, and that's pretty much why you're treated how you're treated. Why you work and you know your wages get taxed unfairly by foreigners. You know what I'm saying? And then when you do collect at the end of the year, what you get back isn't even a quarter of what they actually took from you. So I'd rather just operate under my trust and be treated as a being. You know what I'm saying? Being myself and propria persona sui juris. Making sure to claim my tax treaty benefits. Right? So, a public officer is called a trade or business. All right? A public officer is called a trade or business. So, all people should have a trade or business. Okay? So, the term trade or business includes the performance of the functions of a public office. A public officer is referred to as a ens legis. To wit, ens legis, which is Latin, a creature of the law, an artificial being, a contrast as contrasted with a natural person, applied to corporations considered as deriving their existence entirely from the law. Right? So now this goes all back to why we're utilizing the ens legis. So everything that evolves around an artificial being, which would be like a business, is an ens legis. All right? And the only reason why we would be falling into this is because we're not operating in gold and silver. Right? It's that simple. So, due to that fact, all right, we have to recognize that we are operating with and through our ens legis, but we are not our ens legis. We are in possession. We are the possessors of the ens legis. You understand? The ens legis is in my possession, therefore I'm the possessor. This is spiritual, y'all. This is spiritual. Either you the possessor or you are the possessed. Which one do you choose to be? I choose to be the possessor. To hell with that being possessed crap. To hell with that. Now, the following terms denote a public officer. However, this is not limited to the below only. So just a few, you know what I'm saying, terms to get the mind wrapped around. Public officer. Now remember, public officer means a trade or business. All right, so a public officer is a trade or business. or I'm sorry, public office is a trade or business, so an officer is one who is running a trade or a business, or who is operating a trade or a business. Person, individual, resident, residence, domicile, citizen, notary public, trade or business, inhabitant, employee, employer. All right? Yes, an inhabitant can have a trade or a business. You didn't know that? Employees, employers. Now we're going down into statutes, right? So this is USC Title 5, Section 552A, parentheses A2. I don't know if you can see that right there. If you can get a good look at that. All right. Records maintained on individuals. Definitions. For purposes of this section, the term individual means a citizen of the United States or an alien lawfully admitted for permanent residence. All right. Do not use person without qualification of natural person. What you answer to is your attribute. An attribute then becomes secondary to the fact that you are a natural flesh and blood being. It is imperative that you be yourself, that you present yourself as a natural flesh and blood being, as opposed to a person, as a person can be and has been identified and utilized as a corporation. Many use natural person in a court of law because there is only two distinctions regarding person in a court of law, either natural or fictitious, i.e. corporation. Now, this is a few Supreme Court cases, all right? In common usage, the term person does not, I'm going to say this one more time. In common usage, the term person does not include the sovereign. Statutes employing the word person are ordinarily construed to exclude the sovereign. So this is why it was important for the colonizers to get us to think we are the ens legis, to think we are the person, because if we think we are the person, then by default we cannot be the sovereign, because the sovereign is not the person, and the person is not the sovereign. The master is not the slave, and the slave is not the master. The employee is not the employer, and the employer is not the employee. You see what I'm saying? So this is why I say the people, i.e. the sovereigns, i.e. the possessors, are in possession, right? Are in possession of a person. But the person itself does not hold any weight. They just appear. They appear to be the owner. Right? Go back in this video. I already restated that in these previous pamphlets. A straw appears to be the owner. Not actually the owner, though. All right? And the case that substantiates that is Wilson versus Omaha Tribe, 442 U.S. 653 667 1979. It was in 1979, quoting United States versus Cooper Corporation, 312 U.S. 600 604 1941. Next case. A sovereign is exempt from suit not because of any formal conception or obsolete theory, but on the logical and practical ground that there can be no legal right as against the authority that makes the law on which the right depends. I'll say that one more time. There can be no legal right as against the authority that makes the law on which the right depends. Meaning you can't go against the source from which the very law that you are trying to enforce comes from and depends on, meaning the people. But you got to be the people. If you be persons, then you take yourself outside of the family and nations. You get to see a whole different side of life. the corporate side of life, right? You get to experience corporate America in that capacity. I haven't experienced corporate America for a few years now, and I have to say my mind is relaxed, at ease. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm focused on what's real, what's really important, not these fake distractions and all this BS and bullshit out here. You know what I'm saying? It's not about that. It's about getting the mind right and executing those ideas that are in the mind, building your legacy so you can pass that on to your children, right? So, that being said, let's go a little bit further. Meaning, if you are the sovereign and the sovereign are the are the people united, okay? And sovereignty is expressed via constitution. So if you come together as people, unite, and create a constitution for yourselves to govern yourselves and abide by, then you are a sovereign people, because you have a sovereign government that's governed by a constitution, which is the highest degree of law for any state or nation, right? One nation cannot violate another nation's constitution. That's what international law is for. Here we go. Check this. This is person. An individual or an organization. An individual, man, woman, or child, or as a general rule, a corporation. Under the negotiable instruments law, an individual or a body of persons, whether incorporated or not. The word person in legal terminology is perceived as a general word which normally includes in its scope a variety of entities other than human beings. See, as an example, 1 USC, Section 1, Church of Scientology versus U.S. Department of Justice, 1979, 612, F2D 417, 425. Public officer, an incumbent of a public office invested with certain powers and charged with certain duties pertinent to sovereignty, such an officer as is required by law to be elected or appointed, who has a designation or title given him by law, and who exercises functions concerning the public assigned to him by law. Per the Constitution, Article 6, the senators and representatives before mentioned and the members of the several state legislatures and all executive and judicial officers both of the United States and of the several states shall be bound by oath or affirmation to support this Constitution, but no religious test shall ever be required as a qualification to any office or public trust under the United States. So this is why I said everything in the public is based off trust. So if you're talking about Social Security cards, state ID cards, passports, these are all trust instruments. Okay? Bam, boom. Let's go on with that. That was number 4. I ain't even get into these definitions over here. So let's just get cracking. Now we can start getting into definitions, right? Status. Standing. State or condition. Social position. The legal relation of an individual to the rest of the community. The rights, duties, capacities, and incapacities which determine a person to a given class. A legal personal relationship, not temporary in its nature nor terminable at the mere will of the parties, with which third persons and the state are concerned. While term implies relation, it is not a mere relation. All right, so status. Corporation. A corporation is a person within meaning of equal protection to due process provision of the United States Constitution under the 14th Amendment. The term persons in statute relating to conspiracy to commit offense against the United States or to defraud the United States or any agency includes corporation. In propria persona, in one's own proper person, it was formerly a rule in pleading that pleas to the jurisdiction of the court must be pled in propria persona, because if pleaded by attorney, they admit the jurisdiction, as an attorney is an officer of the court, and he is presumed to plead after having obtained leave, which admits the jurisdiction. Identity, right? Self-identification. Identity, evidence, sameness. The fact that a subject, person, or thing before a court is the same as it is represented, claimed, or charged to be. So if you're claiming to be Aboriginal, then you cannot self-identify with a Washington State, New York State, California State, Oklahoma State, Tennessee State, Nevada State, Ohio State, Kentucky State, Louisiana State, Alabama State, Indiana State. You cannot identify with these. These are not identifications for you. Because it's not proof. It's not the same. Because you're not black. You're not black. So when you use that as identification, you're actually failing in the law of evidence, because it is not the same as the person who's presenting it. A Moor is presenting the state ID as if they're black, or identifying as if you're a corporation rather than identifying as a natural person. I told you, every time I got stopped, I always identified myself as a natural person. Every time. Faithfully. So understand that when my ID and I have to display that or demonstrate that, and it says that my nationality is Moorish American and that I am Kumari Su'el, understand that it is one and the same. It is the same as the person who's demonstrating that. All right? I do not originate from Washington State. All right? My ancestors were here way before the creation of these modern day states. So, no, me using that as evidence can never be one and the same. And this is where I go back to, all nationals should have their national ID and their passport, both in their free national name, not identifying as Black African American and not utilizing the Social Security, which is a number for employees. You don't need a social. What you do need is a witness to come in with you, fill out the witness form, that they've known you for more than 2 years, so that they can substantiate who you are and that you are of good standing. Let's keep going. Identification, proof of identity. The proving that a person, subject, or article before the court is the very same that he or it is alleged, charged, or reputed to be, as where a witness recognizes the prisoner as the same person whom he saw committing the crime, or where handwriting, stolen goods, counterfeit coins, etc. are recognized as the same which once passed under the observation of the person identifying them. The requirement of identification as a condition precedent to admissibility is satisfied by evidence sufficient to support a finding that the matter in question is what its proponent claims. Pretty much meaning, if you're going to claim anything or file any claims or file any suits, you better be yourself. Meaning that when you identify, it better match. It better match with your bloodline. And Black and African American don't match your bloodline. That's just the cold hard truth of the matter. Black and African American does not resonate with your bloodline. Your bloodline is something different. Your bloodline is not black African American. Your bloodline is Moorish American. And even if you don't want to say Moorish American, I'm cool with that. Your bloodline is Aboriginal, autochthon. What you gonna say to that? Yeah. You gonna tell me you'd rather pick black or African American over Aboriginal, autochthon? Seriously? In full life. Continuing in both physical and civil existence. That is neither actually dead or civiliter mortus. All right? So let me read this again. Continuing in both physical and civil existence. Physical, right? Because you could be physically alive but not involved in society or in civilization. Prime example, you can be physically alive but you identify as black or African American. So therefore, civilly, when it comes to law and rights and protections, you're seen as dead. All right? Thus the term civiliter mortus, which means dead in the eyes of the law. But when you're in full life, you're seen as a part of the human family. You do have protections that all judges of all courts are bound to protect you by. Civil, of or relating to the state and its citizenry, relating to private rights and remedies sought by civil actions as contrasted with criminal. With criminal proceedings. The word is derived from the Latin civilis, a citizen, originally pertaining or appropriate to a member of a civitas or free political community, natural or proper to a citizen, also relating to the community or to the policy and government of the citizens and subjects of a state. All right. Civiliter mortus, civilly dead, dead in the view of the law, the condition of one who has lost his civil rights and capacities and is accounted dead in law. After I'm done with this last word, we're going to go into admiralty real quick. And I'm going to explain to you why the trust, okay, is your trust and why you don't have to go through a whole bunch of hula hoops to secure and repossess your estate. But I'm going to tell you why we've been suffering and we've been in the position of a trustee when we're the heirs. This last word right here, not the last word of the lesson, but the last word of this particular pamphlet. Abandonment. The surrender, relinquishment, disclaimer, or cession of property or of rights. So when you say abandon, it's not just dealing with property. It's dealing with your rights. You can abandon your rights. You can abandon your nationality, right? You can abandon these things. So yes, you can abandon your rights and waive them, which people do every goddamn day. I'm sorry, not people, which persons do every goddamn day. But if they knew they were people, maybe they wouldn't do such rash things like waiving their God-given rights. Why would you do that? That's crazy. Voluntary relinquishment of all right, title, claim, and possession with the intention of not reclaiming it. You know, like, hey, I'm just going to leave this truck here. I ain't going to come back for it. Pff, fuck that truck. Whatever happens to it, happens to it. I'll let it go. Boom. Abandonment. The voluntary relinquishment of possession of a thing by owner with intention of terminating his ownership, but without vesting it in any other person. The relinquishing of all title, possession, or claim, or a virtual intentional throwing away of property. So what's being said here is that if you attain property in your lifetime and you don't secure it in a trust, When you die, it's going to be considered abandoned because, for one, you don't have a trust to protect it, and two, even if you didn't have a trust while you were alive, you didn't put a will in place to have your wealth go to specific people that you want to go to within your family. So because of that, all your shit is considered abandoned. And when it's considered abandoned, that means it's up for grabs. Abandonment includes both intention to abandon and the external act by which the intention is carried into effect. In determining whether one has abandoned his property or rights, the intention is the first and paramount object of inquiry, for there can be no abandonment without the intention to abandon. I'm going to repeat that one more time. There can be no abandonment without the intention to abandon. So if you don't have the intention to abandon, then there can be no abandonment. Generally, abandonment can arise from a single act or from a series of acts. Time is not an essential element of abandonment, although the lapse of time may be evidence of an intention to abandon, and where it is accompanied by acts manifesting such an intention, it may be considered in determining whether there has been an abandonment. Abandonment differs from surrender in that surrender requires an agreement, and from forfeiture, in that forfeiture may be against the intention of the party alleged to have forfeited. Abandonment includes birth, the intentions to abandon, and the external act by which the intention is carried into effect. In determining whether one has abandoned his property or rights, the intention is the first and paramount object of inquiry, for there can be no abandonment without the intention to abandon. So guess what? If it's not in your awareness, then it is abandoned. For instance, if you identify as Black and African American and you don't realize, or you haven't come to the realization yet that you are not that, and you are actually a national here, then you've abandoned your estate. You've abandoned your government. You've abandoned your people. Yes. Even though it's not your fault, ignorance of the law is no excuse. I know. It's not your fault. I didn't do this shit, but you know what? Ignorance of the law is no excuse. But guess what? You know now. You know better now. So what are you going to do about it now? Right? That's what matters. Fuck everything else. You got to this point now. You're watching this video now. You're at this moment now. Now that you know, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? So, when we were born as infants, right? Because an infant can be either a decedent, which is a dead person or a deceased person, or a grantor, owner, right, of an estate. So, being that a lot of us were born as Black and African American, right, or at least not born as, but labeled when we were born as such, you know, until we woke up ourselves and had to fix our own house and nationalize and get back into order. But you know what I'm saying? But prior to that, we came in Black and African American. So when we came in and we got labeled by our mother and father as Black and African American, then by default, we have no origins in people. So by default, there are no people to benefit from this estate. So therefore, if there is no people, then shit, there is no owner. You know what I'm saying? You're considered abandoned and lost at sea. But when you claim your nationality and you come into full life and come back into the majority, then you have a right, you know what I'm saying, to that inheritance, because that is your estate. All right? And this government, known as the United States Corporation, I wouldn't say government, I'll just say this business, this bankrupt business known as the United States Corporation Company, is has been living pretty well off the virtues of the people. I have to say, they've been living pretty well because the people have forgotten that they're people. And that's the only way that happens, you know. But by doing that, we were considered lost and dead at sea. So being lost and dead at sea, our states were abandoned, and those who were acting as trustees have been running amok in the name, in our name. So, with that being said, once you declare your nationality, like I said, what happens is you by default become a whatever you want to, I guess a secure party creditor, even though in my mind that term doesn't exist. You're either a national or you're not, because a national is the heir. And if you're the heir, that means that you're the owner of the estate that everyone's feeding off of. And if that's the case, then by default, then you're the creditor. You see what I'm saying? And if you want to be secured, then you got to be secured in the knowledge of who you are. Because if you know who you are, then you'll be thinking like who you are, and you'll be operating like who you are. Does that make sense? So that's really let's just keep it rocking. Just keep it rocking. I'm about to close out pretty soon. Appreciate y'all rocking out with the kid. Or with the man. I don't want to be no goat. Appearance. In law practice, appearance means coming into a court as a party to a suit, whether as a plaintiff or as a defendant. Sui juris means of one's own right, possessing full social and civil rights, and not under any legal disability or under the power of another, nor under guardianship. Status is the standing, the state, or the condition, being a social position. I went over status already. It is the legal relation of an individual to the rest of the community. All right. Status also relates to the rights, the duties, the capacities, and the incapacities which determine a person to a given class. It is the legal personal relationship, not temporary in its nature, nor terminable at the mere will of the parties, with which third persons and the state are concerned. While the term implies relation, it is not a mere relation, because it also means estate, since it also signifies the condition or circumstances in which one stands in regard to his property. So, what's your relationship in regards to your property? Are you the owner? Not just by this, but in actual manifestation, in real-time action, in real time. Are you the owner? Are you standing as such? Because you can only be the owner being a natural person. And if you're going to be a natural person, that means you got to be in your propria persona, sui juris solo proprio. Solo proprio meaning in one's own land. So not only are you in your proper person, in your own right, but you're doing all this on your own land. Not from, northeast, southeast Africa over there. Jurisdiction, in the most simplistic terms, is to speak, to declare, and to administer right law, and involves the legal power and authority to hear and to decide cases, and this is conjoined with the power to execute the laws for administering justice. Jurisdiction is that proper power and right of exercising authority. Jurisdiction thusly also relates to the predetermined and rightly bridled limits within which that power may be exercised, and this same timeless spirit of justice applies to with a distinct recognition of a specified law court, and to its charge and to its assigned station in the civil affairs of men. Herein resides the contemplation to the determination of rightful venue. Treaty. In international law is a compact made between two or more independent nations with a view to the public welfare. This constitutes an agreement, a league, or a contract between two or more nations or sovereigns, and formally signed by commissioners who have been properly authorized, delegated, and solemnly ratified by the several sovereigns or by the supreme power of each state. Person. In general usage, a person means a human being, i.e., natural person, though by statute a person may include a firm, labor, organization, partnership, association, corporations, legal representatives, trustees in bankruptcy, or receivers. Hey yo, didn't the United States go bankrupt in 1933? So if you look at the bankruptcy of the United States Congressional Record 1993, didn't it say that we are the trustees of the biggest bankrupt organization in world history? I'm just saying, persons. It's interesting. Title. In the law of persons is a mark, a style, or a designation, being a distinctive appellation of dignity or distinction. It is a name denoting the social rank of the person bearing it. Important to know. Free white persons is a legal status term. Free white persons referred to in the Naturalization Act as amended by Act of July 14th, 1870, has meaning naturally given to it when first used in Statute 103 C3, meaning all persons belonging to the European races, then commonly counted as white, or their descendants in other countries, to which they may less intermix with peoples of Celtic, Scandinavian, Teutonic, Iberian, Latin, Greek, and Slavic descent. Free white persons includes Magyars, Lapps, and Finns, and the Basques and Albanians. It includes the mixed Latin, Celtic, Iberian, and Moorish inhabitants of Spain and Portugal, the mixed Greek, Latin, Phoenician, and North African inhabitants of Sicily, and the mixed Slav and Tartar inhabitants of South Russia. Free white persons does not mean Caucasian race, Aryan race, or Indo-European races, nor the mixed Indo-European, Dravidian, Semitic, and Mongolian peoples who inhabit Persia. A Syrian of Asiatic birth and descent will not be entitled to become a naturalized citizen of the United States as being a free white person. Okay? So, remember now, we're all Asiatics, but you see how they refer to Assyrians of Asiatic birth and descent. And also, just to bring some clarity, if you read the 13th Amendment with the full 20 articles in Section 12 or Article 12 of the 13th Amendment, it states that the descendants of Africans shall not be citizens. So you got to understand, we cannot be citizens because we were already citizens, or we are already citizens of a government that was in existence prior to the official beginning of the United States of America in Congress assembled, which was in March 1st, 1781, if I'm not mistaken. So we're going to go into these last couple words here, man. We're going to wrap up, family. It's been a great bill. So let's go ahead. Let's finish strong. Allodial. Allodial means free and not holding to any lord or superior, and relates to that which is owned without obligation or vassalage or fealty, being the opposite of feudal, meaning it's owned without any legal duties. There is no price on it. It's just yours, free and clear. No catches. In full life, right? We went over in full life. We went over civil little more tools. We went over identity. What about court? Court is an organ of the government belonging to the judicial department and whose function is the application of the laws to controversies brought before it and for the public administration of justice. It is a tribunal officially assembled under an authority of law as the appropriate time and place for the administering of justice. The court is an agency of the sovereign, created by it directly or indirectly under its authority, consisting of one or more officers, established and maintained for the purpose of hearing and determining issues of law and fact regarding legal rights and alleged violations thereof, and of applying the sanctions of the law, authorized to exercise its powers in due course of law at times and places previously determined by lawful authority. All right, so it's important that as jural societies, we begin to establish our own courts so we can begin to process cases according to our own laws or the laws of the Zodiac Constitution. You know what I'm saying? This is how we hold up against tyranny. Color, just for y'all color folks or people of color and stuff like that. What is color? Color is an appearance, a semblance, or a simulacrum as opposed to that which is real. People of color, opposed to that which is real. I'm black, I'm brown, I'm light skinned, I'm yellow, I'm dark skinned. As opposed to that which is real. I'm white, I'm yellow, I'm blue, I'm green, as opposed to that which is real. Real. Are you real or are you artificial? Are you real or are you artificial? This is important to know, y'all. Colored. It has been held in law that there is no legal technical signification to the phrase colored person, which the courts are bound judicially to know. So now you see why all those cases involving blacks and African Americans gets thrown out, doesn't make it to court, or doesn't make it to Supreme Court. This is why, okay? It's not racism. It's not racism. It's disentitlement through escheating. Let's read what escheat is real quick. Escheat. Escheat, the reversion of property to the state, or in feudal law to a lord or the owners. I'm sorry. Let me repeat that one more time. Escheat, the reversion of property to the state, or in feudal law to a lord, on the owners dying without legal heirs. On the owners dying without legal heirs. So if I'm L, but you my heir, and you claiming to be black African American, then whatever I got ain't going to you, because legally you fail the test of evidence. You're not the same as that which you're portraying to be, which should be connected to me, right, as my heir, as an example. So heir. Now the etymon is X or S. Escheat, it derives from X, means out of or from, and cadir means to fall, which is Latin. So escheat or excadir means to fall from or to fall out of. Fall out of what? The graces of God. To fall out of what? Your inheritance. To fall out of what? The constitutional fold of government. To fall out of what? Your divine religion and creed. So let's just look at what reversion is, right? Reversion, in the context of real property, is the return to the grantor or his or her heirs of real property after all interest in the property given to others have terminated. Reversion occurs when the property owner transfers a vested estate of lesser quantum than he started with. Quantum means amount. All right, so reversion occurs when the property owner transfers a vested meaning fixed or applied. So when they transfer a fixed estate of lesser amount than he started with. All right, quantum means amount. Now, if you're familiar with the Latin phrase quantum meruit, I don't know if I'm saying it properly, but that's how I'm saying it. Quantum meruit. Quantum meru. Quantum meruit, which is Latin for what one has earned, a judicial doctrine that allows a party to recover losses in the absence of an agreement or binding contract. Vassal. Well, I just wanted to read that, but I don't even want a vassal. What is vassal? Vassal is a holder of land by feudal tenure on conditions of homage and allegiance. Homage would be like tribute. Tenure is the condition under which land or buildings are held or occupied. All right. Now, that being said, I hope this has brought some things together. But I'm not. But you know what? Let me get this into because this will help. Help solidify everything. Feudalism. Everything we're doing is opposing feudalism. Feudalism, right? We've been living in feudalism. Feudalism is when you have a lord over you, right? Like if you remember those Robin Hood movies and films, those were that would be an example of what feudal is, because you see how the king would send a sheriff to go and tax the poor heavily, even if they didn't have nothing. They tax them to their percent. They tax them to beyond the point of negative. That is what you call feudal. That is a feudal government in which you have a lord or a king over you who you are subject to. So if that king decides tomorrow to raise the taxes, then you ain't got no choice, because that is your king, or you get the fuck out of that government, right? Feudalism, the dominant social system in medieval Europe in which the nobility held lands from the crown in exchange for military service, and vassals, which would be slaves, were in turn tenants of the nobles, while the peasants, villeins or serfs, were obliged to live on their lord's land and give him homage, labor, and a share of the produce, notionally in exchange for military protection. So this is where you get mobocracy and sharecropping from. All right, feudalism. That means everything you do, the state or the company get a piece, aka taxes. So appreciate your family for your time. I hope this video has been useful. And we'll continue building from that. Once again, what I'm saying, if you want to subscribe to Sunel University, become a part of that family, what I'm saying, as we're building and studying and sharing information, as well as you can email me at suneluniversity@gmail.com, suneluniversity@gmail.com, and you can email me and inquire me for mentorship. I offer mentorship programs outside of Sunel University, because I like to deal with people on a more personal level too. It's one thing to deal people as a whole, but it's another thing to deal personally on a personal level. So that's what I like to do. So you can hit me up. Also hit me up on my phone, 206-899-6972, and let's just build and grow from there. All right, fam. I'm your brother Cool. Peace, Islam, love and light.